A person comes in. He's wheeled in. He's in a wheelchair. He's got an oxygen tank. He's very feeble, and he basically says to David and Maddie, "I'm dying, and I'm draining my kids' inheritance, and I've hired someone to kill me. They're going to kill me at midnight. I want you to come in at 12:02 and document that I was killed before anyone from the home comes in and messes with evidence. I need someone just to make sure you got my back." Just so it doesn't look like anything other than me being killed. So that, because if I kill myself, they don't get my inheritance. They don't get the insurance. So, of course, do we take it? Don't we take it? Blah, blah, blah. And that was the setup that we sold. And Glenn said, great idea, do it. And what happens is David, of course, takes the case. And what the guy said, everything he said was true except for one thing. The person who walks in the room is going to be accused of the crime. So David's been set up. He walks in and he's the one who, is all the evidence points to him. Now this was good. And that took us halfway through. That took us to the halfway point of the script. Then we realized we have no way of proving what happened. And the only person who could prove it is dead. And this thing, we were writing ahead of the camera and we were just painted into a corner and I was, coming home and just laying there awake one night and explained to Tina what was going on. And she said, well, what happened? And I said, well, the guy, he could walk. He just hasn't walked for the last 2, 3, 4 years. He said it's all been part of his plan. He got up and he turned off his own oxygen and then he went back to bed. And she said, well, what if his slippers are facing the bed? And I thought, ooh, hey, and that was it. Look, that would not have worked on any believable procedural show, but on Moonlighting, it worked just fine. and that bailed me out. So she's a very good source too. Anyway, Pete, a long roundabout way of saying that I get feedback from anyone who will read my stuff.
Okay. Well, then I have, we have a little thing at SimplyScripts going right now that is called, we just started it. It's like just a little challenge thingy. It's called 7-week challenge where you have to write a feature in 7 weeks. And yeah, it will be a rough first draft, most likely, but
maybe
still,
not.
Some people are more, than others. But anyway, so, this, and Jeff is on that challenge, and so am I. And we have totally different approaches to writing a feature. Okay, so I want to ask you, what is your approach when you are going to start writing a new feature? I mean, how do you start? I mean, even if you were in a hurry, let's say somebody put the gun to your head and say, hey, Ron, you need to write me a good feature in 7 weeks. How do you start? What's your approach?
I have been in that situation because when you're hired to write a script, usually the first draft is 12 weeks. But I've also, we've been hired to do like production rewrites where, it starts shooting in 6 weeks and you have to do it, you have to do the rewrite. But normally when you have, this is a little different. When you get the deal, when you get the contract to write the first draft in 12 weeks, you've already at least sold them on an approach. If the studio says, here's an idea and what would you do with it? And you say, here's what you do. And they hire you based on that. At least we have that to go on. But my partner and I, we just finished a romantic comedy that we started in, end of October. And we took about 3 months with, the holidays kind of breaking in there to, write it, maybe 4. But frankly, we kind of sit down and we know the major beats. I mean, we've worked out our characters. We know the arcs. We don't know all the scenes when we start writing, but we know the major ones. We always know where we're going. We've learned from things like Moonlighting and West Wing and whatnot. We always like to know what we're aiming toward. So we don't start without an ending. We don't like to go in and say, let's see what happens. Let's see where this takes us. That we're not comfortable doing that on my own. I don't mind doing that somewhat, but not on an assignment. And then we what's the word? We outline at great length.
Mm-hmm.
And you write really detailed character bios and all this and that?
No, not per se, but this is, speaking for what I do with my partner Jeff, we write we tend to write a kind of character that we know really well, and we know what makes them tick. We know the major points of their what makes them who they are. There's that excellent breakdown of character that Lejos Egre does in that book, The Art of Dramatic Writing. Do you guys know that?
No.
No.
It's a classic book. This book is, it's been around since like in the 40s or 50s. And, Lejos Egre was, I guess, a playwright. And he breaks down, physical, sociological, psychological as the 15 headings. And then under each one, he has, 10, 12 subheadings. And way back when I started writing, I used to answer every one of those questions. Now, when I'm on my own and creating character, I do look at the three big areas, the physical, the sociological, and the psychological. And I answer only the questions that apply. For instance, in the script Echo that I was just talking about, it has to do with a very educated, intelligent architect who, for instance, probably has opinions on politics, probably has some background in religion, but I didn't answer any of that because it didn't apply to my story. If the story veered in that direction, I'd have to know that information. One thing that I do on my own, this is an exercise when I'm creating character, is I try to imagine what that person would do with a day free to do nothing. If that person was alone and left to his or her own devices for a day, if I can track them through that day and understand, and by the way, sitting in front of a television doesn't count. What
about what shows they would watch?
Sure. Yeah, that's valid.
Yeah.
Well, that's something I've never used, but sure, that's a valid approach. But I mean, that's a part of the larger picture. But if I can do that, I'm pretty comfortable. Robert Towne once said something that he defines his characters by what they fear most, and I know he knows more about them than just that, but that's kind of the hub from which the spokes extend for him, because in doing that, clearly he's speaking to conflict, goal, need, and all that's going to impact his story. And the example he used in the case of Chinatown with Jake Gittes was humiliation. Jake Gittes is someone who's worked he's very successful, he's worked long and hard, he's got a reputation, a good reputation, he's built up this agency. And along comes someone who essentially publicly humiliates him. So that's going to motivate him for that script to get to the bottom of it, whether he's getting paid or not. He's going to find out who set him up.
Okay, then another question.